A while ago, I made a video on AI learning roadmap showing you all the things you needed to learn to educate yourself about AI. Now, after about a year and a half, so much has changed. Just 2 years ago, most of us were just using AI as nothing more than a chatbot to draft emails or ask random questions. And today, we've got reasoning models, AI agents, deep research tools, video generation models, and powerful open source AI models that you can actually run locally. So I think this roadmap deserves a major update and a more detailed walkthrough. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can get yourself to a point where you know more about AI than 99% of people today, and also share resources to help you dig deeper into any of the topics we cover. There's no one-size-fits-all roadmap, so I've broken it down into two paths. The first path is the power user path. So that means that you want to master all the cutting-edge tools to boost your productivity and enhance whatever you're already doing. And I think this is actually relevant to everyone today. And the second path is the builder path. This path is if you want to go deeper, understand the tech behind the current AI, and actually build things with it, like creating and deploying your own applications or solutions. As you see, both of these skill sets are important and highly in demand today. So here's what we'll go over in this video. First, we'll talk about the current state of AI and why everyone should be learning AI today. Then we will dive into the AI basics, so the key definitions, a brief history of generative AI, and how it works at a high level. We'll also touch upon multi-modal models and what today's AI can and cannot do. All this is kind of like the new baseline knowledge everyone should have about AI today. After that, we'll go through a quick roadmap for becoming an AI power user. This is a low barrier, easy place to get started. And the second part, coming soon, we'll dive into the builder path. Once that video is live, I'll link it here and in the video description. You might be thinking there's a mountain of things to learn and you're not a technical person, but it's always better to start learning today than to wait until tomorrow. I've also shared a link to a living document with everything we'll be covering today. You can download it in the video description below. So why should you bother learning AI? Why should everyone learn AI today? Over the past few decades, AI has already done some pretty incredible things, from solving complex protein structures to diagnosing diseases. But what's happening now is on a whole new level. In just the past few years, AI developments have absolutely skyrocketed, and it's happening way faster than even the experts predicted.
So is it smarter than us already?
In many things, yes. Well, in some things, yes. And it certainly knows hugely more than a person. So GPT-4, Gemini 2.5, or Claude know thousands of times more than any one person.
Recent research has shown that the length of tasks AI can handle has been doubling every 7 months over the past 6 years. Agentic systems powered by state-of-the-art models like GPT-4o and Sonnet 3.7 autonomously perform 1-hour-long tasks with about 50% success rate. This is a massive leap from just a few years ago when AI could only handle tasks that last a few minutes. At this pace, AI systems are quickly getting to a point where it can do many types of knowledge work. And this is why it's becoming really important for us to learn how to use AI and stay on top of what it's capable of, especially if you're doing knowledge work. Businesses all over the world, big and small, are betting on AI and racing to capitalize on it, even though the technology isn't perfect yet. If AI can save human workers hours of repetitive, tedious tasks and make processes more efficient, it will directly lower costs and improve the bottom line. So for most profit-driven companies, integrating AI is an absolute no-brainer. According to a recent study by AWS, 60% of surveyed companies have already appointed chief AI officers. More than half of these organizations said the biggest challenge in moving from AI experiments to production is the lack of skilled generative AI talent. And almost all of those companies said they are actively looking to hire new generative AI talent in 2025. Based on this study, although it's quite small and it's not representative of all industries, it's quite clear that people who can understand, used and built with AI are in very high demand. You might also have seen some leaked memos and internal messages from CEOs at companies like Fiverr and Shopify. They all point to the same urgent message. If you want to stay relevant, you need to understand and be proficient in using AI. As I put it, AI fluency is the new baseline. Interesting insight I've come across is that as AI gets better, it drives down the value of skills it can do and drives up the value of skills it can't. So your best strategy is to start learning the skills that AI will actually make more valuable. One of those important skills is deploying AI. And that comes back to one of the two paths that we've laid out in this roadmap. Alright, before we dive deeper, let's get some context around AI and let's take a step back and start by understanding what artificial intelligence actually is. In general, artificial intelligence or AI refers to machines or computer programs that can understand, process, or complete cognitive tasks, things that are typically associated with human intelligence. And what about generative AI that everyone is talking about today? Generative AI is the technology that can create new content like text, images, audio, video, code, and other types of media. It's perhaps the most recent breakthrough, coming after more than half a century of AI research so far. Even though most people casually use AI to mean generative AI these days, AI also includes fields like robotics, planning, search, game playing, and much, much more. Generative AI today, such as large language models, is actually a subset of deep learning, which uses a special type of machine learning algorithm called deep artificial neural networks. These networks are designed to mimic, in a very simplified way, the structure and functioning of biological neurons in our brains. And deep learning itself is a subset of machine learning that specializes in understanding and processing unstructured data, things like text, images, and audio, as opposed to more traditional structured data like tables with rows and columns. Personally, I don't think you need a lot of math to understand the process of training a deep learning model at a very high level. I'd encourage you to check out a few videos on the 3 Blue 1 Brown channel. Sam Anderson made some really cool video explaining deep learning, so I'd encourage you to go check it out. The process goes like this. The input data is fed into the neural network. So for example, an image of a cat, then the values of the parameters or the connection strength between the neurons in the network convert that data into a predicted output, like a text description, "This is a cat." And these outputs are then compared to the correct answers, which is also called the data labels, to calculate the accuracy. Then the model parameters or the connection strengths between the neurons are then adjusted, increased or decreased in a way that's expected to increase accuracy. Finally, this process is repeated over and over with trillions of pieces of data. This method has been used to train all kinds of data. When it comes to large language models, LLMs, or the kind of models that only work with text, the training data is mostly text from the internet, and the models are optimized to predict missing words or gaps in the text. Deep learning also borrows a lot of ideas from other fields in computer science, such as natural language processing and computer vision. The rapid advancements of generative AI in recent years comes down to three key factors. The first one is better algorithms, like the transformers that were introduced in 2017 by Google. Secondly, massive amounts of data available on the internet. And finally, increased computing power. This helps explain why we didn't have ChatGPT decades ago, when we were still using floppy disks and computers with just a few megabytes of memory. So generative AI has been very impressive. But the main downside, and this applies to deep learning models in general, is the lack of transparency. They are often called black box models because they are so complex that even people who build them don't fully understand how they work. And this is quite a big concern, especially if you want to integrate AI, this kind of AI, into some business applications or use cases that actually need transparency and trust. In those cases, it's probably better not to use Gen AI, but just some traditional machine learning models. Now, let's talk about multimodal models. In the past, generative models could only handle one type of input. They can only process and generate text or images, but today's most powerful AI models like GPT-4 or Gemini 2.5 Pro are all multimodal. And that means they can process and generate multiple types of input and output, not just text, but also images, audio, and even video. These multimodal models work by combining different AI models through a process called multimodal fusion. And I know this doesn't sound very helpful, but here's a simple example. We have video data, which is a sequence of image frames. We have voice data, which is the audio track, and we have the text transcript. The key question then is, when and how do we blend all this information together to decide the genre of this YouTube video? There are three common approaches to multimodal fusion. The first one is early fusion. You immediately mash the raw video data and raw text data and audio data together at the very start and feed that combined blob of information into a single AI model. This method is, however, not commonly used because it's rather messy and inefficient. The second approach is intermediate fusion. This is the most common method where each type of data is processed separately first. So a vision model might come in and analyze the video data for visual patterns. Then a language model will process the transcript to extract the themes and key information from the text data. Then these insights are combined into a shared numerical space called embeddings. We'll talk more about embeddings later. And this combined understanding helps the model predict the final video genre. We also have late fusion strategy where each model makes its own independent guess. For example, the vision model might predict gaming, the language model might predict tutorial, and these two predictions are then merged to make the final decision. So based on our understanding of how AI models are created, we can start to build a theoretical understanding of what current AI models are good at and what they are bad at. Generative AI models, like large language models, are trained to predict internet data, and this makes them very good at tasks that are based on pattern matching and recall of the data they are trained on. That's why they're excellent at things like answering questions or making conversations. GPT-4 has passed the Turing test or the imitation tests, and large language models have been found to be more convincing than humans in many cases. They're also good at creative writing or brainstorming, writing code, and reasoning to a certain extent. However, even the most advanced AI systems today still have significant limitations. For example, they can trip over surprisingly simple problems like counting the number of R's in the word strawberries, and image generation models often fail to reliably modify images with your simple instructions. And LLMs can also hallucinate, meaning they confidently generate information that is just dead wrong. Another thing is they may often fail to notice or correct their own mistakes. And you may notice that AI coding assistants or agents still often struggle or fail to debug the code they write. Gen AI models also struggle with long-term planning. They can't reliably manage a complex project from start to finish yet. And advanced reasoning models sometimes overthink simple problems. A recent research from Apple also shows that their reasoning tends to break down when dealing with really complex and multi-step problems. So these are some of the limitations you want to be mindful of when using AI or developing applications with AI today. So knowing all this, it's fair to say we are still not at AGI yet. OpenAI defines AGI, or artificial general intelligence, as a highly autonomous system that outperforms humans at most economically valuable work. Some people believe we're already quite close to achieving AGI, just a few years away, a few breakthroughs away. The truth is, no one really knows. Current estimates from various experts are all over the place, from just a few years to decades away. But there's already some exciting progress toward a different path to AGI. Researchers are working on world models that can actually understand and simulate the world. That's why they're potentially much more grounded in reality than current generative AI. We'll have to wait and see if this approach will actually work. So fingers crossed. Alright, let's now talk about the roadmap for how to become a power user of AI. Not just a casual user who can ask AI what's for dinner, but you want to be someone who actually gets things done with it and do it very well. The good news is for this power user path, you don't need to know the code or anything. You just need to know how to pick the right tools and learn how to use them well. First off, for anyone serious about using AI to get stuff done, I'd recommend you pick one of the big three. So ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. You can start for free, but to use the full features, you will pay around $20 per month. These big three systems offer the most advanced and fast models, and also a voice mode, which we'll talk about in a bit, and also the ability to upload images and documents and generate images and documents. These systems can also run code, for example, a Python script. They also have good mobile apps that you can easily download and access on your phone. Since downloading ChatGPT on my phone, I find myself using it more often than Google, especially for quick questions. There are also a lot of other tools and models out there, including specialized ones like some people love Perplexity for search, Napkin AI for turning text into simple visuals, and Manus AI is a great agent, but most of the time I believe using one of the big three should be enough for around 70 to 80% of your daily tasks. Now, most people are using AI just like using Google with just default settings, but you should be familiar with configuring your tool according to what you need and your own preferences. For example, you can choose the best model for each task. Most systems default to the fast model to save computing power, and the fast model is probably enough for simple tasks like summaries or quick brainstorming or making checklists. But if you're doing more complex tasks, such as writing a complex report, doing data analysis, or solving multi-step problems, it's best to switch to the powerful models and not the default fast ones. Those are the reasoning models that are more suitable for the more complex tasks. You can also go to settings in ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini and customize your personal preferences for the chatbot. This can help you get more helpful responses. I personally keep things minimum. I don't like sharing my life details with ChatGPT, for example, but if you're into that, you can configure some details about you, your preferences, etc. And you can do the same for Claude and Gemini. If you're concerned about privacy, please check your privacy settings. Claude doesn't train on your data by default, but ChatGPT and Gemini might, unless you switch it off. To be honest, I find this a little bit disturbing. Now, in ChatGPT, you can go to the settings and go to the data controls to turn this off. You may also want to turn on or off the memory in ChatGPT's personalization option, which lets the AI remember scattered details about you. In my case, I have disabled it, but you can decide what you're comfortable with. And in Google Gemini, you can click on the activity over here and then select the turn off drop-down menu, or you can also just delete your conversation data. Alright, the next thing to try is deep research. This is probably one of the most useful and powerful things you can do using AI. ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini all have the deep research feature these days, and they are still very new. With deep research, you can produce very high-quality reports that are also more reliable than just relying on the chatbot. And this can save you a lot of time, whether you're a student, a lawyer, an accountant, consultant, market researcher, or you just want to do research on whatever topic you need in your daily lives. For example, I want to help my niece research all the different universities in Europe that offer computer science study. And the result is quite useful, and it would save me probably 3 hours making this whole overview. I also recently made a full video on this channel to walk you through how to use all these different deep research tools and also give you a comprehensive comparison of 5 popular tools. So if you're interested, you can check it out over here. Okay, as we mentioned earlier, all popular AI systems like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini are multimodal. That means it can also take images, audio, video as input. So for quick questions, I prefer using voice mode and also do screen sharing if I need real-time help. Can you tell me why my bamboo plant is turning yellow?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, the leaves are definitely turning yellow. Usually that can happen if it's either
Well, I only do this when I'm alone though. Talking to AI in public still feels very weird. Plus, the background noise can mess up with your voice input, and so the voice mode doesn't work quite well. Next, let's talk about prompt engineering. People keep saying prompt engineering is dead every time a new model comes out, but the truth is, prompt engineering is still very much alive and very much useful. It's still the fastest way to get high quality results from AI. And as more companies build LLM-powered apps and agents, writing great prompts will matter even more, because for these cases, we need much more accurate and reliable responses. And prompt engineering is one of the solutions for that. There are a lot of different prompting techniques out there, and if you dive into them, you probably will get lost. But you don't need to know everything. Some old techniques, including role prompting, for example, telling the AI model, you're a math professor, blah, 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 and chain of thought prompting, meaning telling the model to think step by step through the problem, they are becoming less and less useful as large language models get better. So I think for a common user, the most important techniques you should master is firstly add the context. This is the number one thing that boosts the performance and gives you much better results. A useful way to think about context is this. Asking an AI to do something without context is like walking up to a random stranger on the street and saying, "Hey, write me a report." The stranger is probably going to stare at you and wonder, okay, what, for whom, how long, what's the purpose? So it's really important to provide the necessary background details or any additional information to give the model the relevant input it needs. Because remember, all these AI models today are generative AI, and that means they generate outputs based on the probability distribution of the data in the input. So whatever information or data you provide in the input will directly impact the output. So for example, instead of saying, write me a marketing plan, you can try adding more context. For example, write me a 3-month social media marketing plan for a small local coffee shop that just opened in Amsterdam. The shop targets young professionals and students, has a cozy minimalist vibe, and wants to focus on Instagram and TikTok for outreach. You can also add all the relevant information, for example, bios, documents, images, or past interactions that can help nudge the response to the right direction. A good thing to know is that ChatGPT and Claude can access your files and mailbox if you let them. There are ways to help you connect or integrate these tools with your email or Google Drive and so on. And Gemini can easily access your Gmail if you let it because they belong to the same Google ecosystem. So this way you can ask these models to look up the relevant context automatically, whether from your mailbox or your Google Drive or your calendar. But I prefer to give the context manually because it feels more comfortable for me to have more control. The next tip with prompting is to be really clear and specific about what you want. For example, instead of saying, give me some productivity tips, it's better to say, give me 5 productivity tips for someone who works from home, struggles with procrastination, that's me, and wants to limit social media distractions. A useful structure that you can use for your prompt is this. So first, you give the context. So for example, my company is a financial consulting firm and is hiring for trainees. And then you describe the persona. I'm a recruiter for the HR department of the company. Then describe the actual tasks or instructions. Can you write a job description for this role? And you can specify the output format and tone as well if you like. And one really important thing that I think a lot of people miss is to provide some kind of exemplar or examples of the output that you want to achieve. With these examples, you can effectively illustrate what good output should look like for you. Okay, this is the general guide, and anyone can tell you how to structure your prompts with different elements, but in reality, it's all a trial and error process. You just iterate multiple times, keep improving your prompt, and see what works and what doesn't. And a lot of times you only realize what you missed in your prompt after you've seen the output. And here's a pro tip. If you already have a few great examples of what you're trying to do, you can even try asking the AI to reverse engineer the prompt that would generate similar results. For instance, here are 3 great cover letters. Write the exact prompt I can use to create something similar. Some people swear by using Gemini to craft really strong prompts and then switching to ChatGPT or Claude to let them generate or do the actual work. Another really useful tip that I want to share is to ask for a lot of things. A lot of people just ask a question and get the response and call it done. But the truth is, the AI doesn't get tired or resentful. So instead of asking for 10 ideas, ask for 50 ideas or ask for 30 options to improve a sentence, for example. And then you can push the AI to expand on whatever things you like to go in depth on. I find this a very helpful trick to help you get the most out of these AI models. Another thing to try is to use branching to explore alternatives. So Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini all let you edit your prompts after you have gotten the answer. So once you've edited your prompt and submitted, this will create a new kind of branch of the conversation, and you can move between branches by using the arrows that appear on the UI. And this is also a very good way to learn how your prompts impact the conversation or the output you get. Now, once you feel comfortable with these basic tactics and techniques, you can explore the more advanced techniques. Some of the advanced techniques that I find most useful are firstly, few-shot prompting, which is to include examples of what you want to do in the prompt. Studies so far have shown that this is a very effective and reliable technique. Recently, I also watched a podcast with Sander Schuhoff, so he's one of the people who knows a lot about prompting. And he said that if there were one technique that he could recommend to people, that would be few-shot prompting. To apply this technique after you've written your prompt, you can just add below your prompt. For example, here are 3 great cover letters or whatever. Now write one for this new job. The second advanced prompting technique that I found useful is to ask the AI to review and critique its own answer. This is based on some research that LLMs are actually capable of evaluating their own response using just a simple prompt. For example, you can simply ask, critique your response and suggest improvements, and then paste your original prompt and original response in here. One fun thing you can also do is to let the AI models review and critique each other's output. For example, you can paste the response from ChatGPT into Gemini and ask it to critique and vice versa. This is also a very useful way to learn the strengths and weaknesses of different AI models. The next prompting technique that I want to mention is problem decomposition. So this is to ask the AI to break down a complex task into smaller steps first. Let's say you want to ask the AI, help me build a personal website. This is too generic and probably the AI wouldn't know what to respond. But if you first ask the AI to decompose the problem, you'll get much better results. For example, break down the steps required to build a personal website from scratch for someone who has no coding experience. And the AI might respond with all the different steps that you need to follow. Now you can go back and say, great, help me with step 1. How do I define the purpose of my website? Or help me with step 2. How do I choose a platform or framework? And then you just keep going through the steps. And last but not least, a very useful technique that I use quite often is emotion prompting. This is to let the AI know what's emotionally significant to you. And by doing this, you push the AI a little bit to give the most useful and helpful response to you. For example, at the end of your prompt, you can say, this is extremely important for my career. Give me the most thoughtful, high-quality answer you can. And a lot of times I do find that it helps giving me longer or more thoughtful and higher quality answers. So apart from all the prompting guides from ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, I'd also recommend learnprompting.org. This is a fantastic resource if you want to dive into all kinds of different prompting techniques to advance. When I went through it, I realized how little I knew about prompting. There are some techniques I've never heard of. And you also learn about prompt hacking techniques that makes you realize how easy advanced LLMs can be fooled with surprisingly simple hacks. And this knowledge can be very useful if you go on to build AI applications or agents later on. Once you've gotten the hang of writing effective prompts, it's worth diving into the more advanced features that are unique to each AI tool you are using. For example, in ChatGPT, you can create projects where you can keep chats, files, and all custom instructions in one place related to one project you're working on. And this will save you a lot of time when you have ongoing work. For example, here I have different projects for my computer science study, for my newsletter, for my video research, and so on. And each of them has a bunch of files that I can reference to and some custom instructions. You can also create custom GPTs. Basically, you customize a version of ChatGPT for a specific purpose. For example, I have a few GPTs here. I've also made this Dynamo GPT public so anyone can access and use it. You can find the video tutorial for how I created this one over here. In Gemini, you also have a similar feature called Create Gems. So far, I've found that they don't work very well, so it's up to you to experiment with it. And if you're using Claude, I would definitely recommend you to experiment with the artifacts feature. If you go to the artifacts menu over here within Claude.ai, you can find a lot of inspiration for what you can build, from a writing editor or flashcards or different games or specific applications. And recently, Claude also introduced a new beta feature called Power Your Artifacts with Claude API. So this feature allows you to build apps and prototypes that have direct access to your own Claude instance. So you don't have to manually configure your LLM connection and the Claude API key inside your app. So that is pretty convenient for quick prototypes. So to sum up, here are the steps to become a power user of AI. Firstly, choose one tool and learn how to use it well. So configure your tool, try deep research for comprehensive reports and analysis, and utilize their multimodal features, for example, using voice mode with your camera or screen sharing for real-time help, and learn to write better prompts. And finally, don't forget to explore and make use of the more advanced features in any AI system you're using. And if you're ready to go further and explore the builder path, so this will be more technical, more hands-on side of AI, where we'll focus on building AI applications and agents, I've got the next part of this roadmap coming soon, so I'll link it here somewhere and in the description below when it's live. I hope this has been helpful and thank you for watching. Bye bye.